ओ इंदिरा राणीए तू ताया हरिमंदर तेनू किस तरह दा खूनी ख्वाब आया?
A young Sikh's battle cry, commemorating an event so traumatic it will echo for generations on the plains of northern India.
The Sikhs will never forget it. The storming of the Golden Temple will remain ever etched in their minds.
It's quite clear to me that the siege of the temple has started.
In June 1984, the Indian Army enters Sikhism's holiest shrine. A bloody showdown between the government of Indira Gandhi, a Sikh preacher, Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. It outrages and alienates a people and devastates a dynasty.
Mrs. Gandhi is assassinated.
An escalating cycle of revenge, all set in motion by the storming of the Golden Temple. For Sikhs, there is no place more sacred than the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Come here to worship and to bathe in the reflection of one of the world's most holy shrines. Sikhism is based on the belief in one God and equality of all people. It was founded 5 centuries ago by Guru Nanak. Today, his disciples converge at the Golden Temple for a vibrant annual celebration of his birth and his life. Their leader, Jarnail Singh, a man determined to change the course of history. Jarnail Singh has rustic roots himself. In the Punjab of northern India, he is the 7th son of a devout Sikh farmer, born in 1947. The year of India's independence from Britain, and the year of its bloody partition from the new Muslim nation of Pakistan.
As the new dominions of Pakistan and India take over their own affairs, communal hatred flares up in the Punjab. Fleeing from their looted, blood-stained towns comes a new exodus.
In the years to come, the legacy of partition will help fuel Jarnail Singh's sense of grievance. His religious education begins early at a seminary outside Amritsar, the Damdami Taksal. It is a 300-year-old school where some of the most influential Sikh holy men have trained. Here, young boys learn about the heroic martyrs of their faith, and even before they can read, are steeped in the words of their gurus. From the beginning, Jarnail Singh demonstrates a combination of piety and skill that marks him as a future leader.
ਉਹ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦੂਜੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਣੀ ਵੱਧ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਧਰਮ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਬਰਦਾਸ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰਦੇ। ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਧਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਉਲਟ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੇ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਬਰਦਾਸ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰਦੇ। ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਿ ਨਾਰਾਜ਼ਗੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸਮਝਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ। ਬੈਠਣਾ ਉੱਠਣਾ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੰਦੇ।
At the religious school, Jarnail Singh also learns how to fight. Students here inherit a centuries-old martial arts tradition. They take literally the words of their 10th guru, who told Sikhs to arm themselves against their oppressors.
He said very significant lines. When all other means have failed, it is righteous to draw the sword.
Jarnail Singh will take those lines to heart. He learns to become a defender of his faith against the central government. A government run by a powerful Hindu family. Indira Gandhi becomes Prime Minister in 1966. She is the daughter of independent India's first Prime Minister, and heir to the Nehru dynasty. One of her challenges is to appease Sikhs in the Punjab, where resentment has been festering since partition. Starting in 1947, when the British left India, the Punjab, the Sikh spiritual homeland, has been split in two. Partition, in order to accommodate a Muslim homeland. Part of Punjab, including the city of Lahore, now belongs to Pakistan. The rest of Punjab, including Amritsar and the Golden Temple, is still part of India.
There were many, many Sikhs living in that part of Punjab which went to Pakistan, and virtually every one of them was either killed or migrated.
On the 15th of August came freedom. The freedom to burn, loot and murder. While Delhi and Karachi were celebrating, central Punjab was burning.
Between August 1947 and March 1948, 4.5 million Hindus and Sikhs are forced to migrate from Pakistan to India. 6 million Muslims must move in the opposite direction. Britons and Indians witness the bloodshed.
It is a battleground. People have gone mad. Trains to Pakistan are being looted and occupants slaughtered. The British Empire, which tried to build India over centuries, can never live down this great tragedy.
In this chaos, millions of refugees were struggling to get to India or Pakistan. Thousands of others were doing their best to prevent them, murdering them by the hundred. A death is nothing. There are things more terrible than death.
10 million people are displaced in the partition of India. 1 million are dead.
Despite enormous losses during partition, the Sikhs make an impressive recovery and turn India's Punjab into the breadbasket of the nation. But some remain resentful, fearing that Sikhs, who make up only 2% of the country's population, will be drowned out in Hindu-dominated India.
A sense of grievance grew amongst them, and they said, well, the Hindus got Hindustan, the Muslims got Pakistan. What have we Sikhs got out of this? Nothing.
In the mid-70s, the Sikh political party, the Akali Dal, demands that the central government give Punjab more political autonomy. Indira Gandhi's government is in crisis. Amidst charges of corruption, the Prime Minister imposes draconian emergency rule in an effort to cling to power. The result is a humiliating defeat for Mrs. Gandhi and her Congress party in the 1977 general election. That same year, the prodigy of the Damdami Taxal, Jarnail Singh, takes over as the school's new leader. Following in the tradition of his predecessors, he takes the surname Bhindranwale. In late 1977, word is spreading among the Sikhs of rural Punjab about a new holy man, or Sant. 31-year-old Sant Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale is drawing crowds with his passionate sermons and martial bearing.
और उनके बीच एक ऐसी खिंच थी उनकी बात में, और उनके गलबात का तरीका ऐसा था कि जिसके साथ ही बात करते थे उसको अपना बना लेते.
Bhindranwale warns young Sikhs against the evils of shaving beards, cutting hair, and indulging in alcohol and tobacco. And he does not hesitate to declare war on those Sikhs he considers blasphemers. Among them, a breakaway sect called Nirankaris. In April 1978, 13 Sikhs are killed in a street fight with the Nirankaris. The Nirankaris are later acquitted of murder. Bhindranwale is outraged.
तो बाबा जरनैल सिंह भिंडरांवाले ने बोलिया भी ऐसा नहीं होने देंगे। तो संत जरनैल सिंह ने बोल दिया कि जो निरंकारी को मारेगा उसको सोने से तोलूंगा। संत जरनैल सिंह ने बोल दिया और वो बहुत बड़ी एक मूवमेंट उनके आले दुआले इकट्ठी होनी शुरू हो गई।
Revenge is not long in coming. On April 24th, 1980, when the Nirankari leader arrives at his home in New Delhi, assassins are waiting in the shadows. And before long, another high-profile killing. This time the victim is a Hindu newspaper proprietor. After this murder, Bhindranwale is arrested. His angry supporters clash with police and 18 Sikhs are killed. Another event that fuels the preacher's sense of grievance. Bhindranwale spends a month in jail, but is never charged. In rural Punjab, Bhindranwale's influence is growing. His rise to prominence coincides with a change of government. Indira Gandhi is back in power. Before long, she and Bhindranwale will become arch-enemies, but for now, her attention is focused on another group of Sikhs. They are the Akali Dal, the Sikh political party. While the Akalis are more moderate than Bhindranwale, they are demanding concessions from Mrs. Gandhi's government, more rights and more autonomy for Sikhs in the Punjab. In 1981, the Akalis come to New Delhi for negotiations, but the talks break down because Mrs. Gandhi is gearing up for critical state elections. Mrs. Gandhi's cynical bid for Hindu votes and failure to appease the Sikhs begins the countdown to disaster. The Akalis respond with street protests leading up to the 1982 Asian Games in New Delhi. Mrs. Gandhi is afraid the Sikhs will embarrass her in front of the world, so the authorities crack down hard. Sikhs from all walks of life and all political stripes are harassed, detained, and arrested. The authorities' heavy-handed tactics infuriate Sikhs and drive many of them right into Bhindranwale's camp. Among the newcomers is a valuable ally, a retired military officer, General Shabeg Singh. His inside knowledge of the Indian Army and expertise in guerrilla warfare will turn Bhindranwale's militants into an organized fighting force. Bhindranwale is now living right next door to Sikhism's most sacred shrine, in the hostel complex of the Golden Temple. Here, he is easily accessible to his supporters and to journalists who sense a growing edginess. In early 1983, there are murders, bombings, and bank robberies, but the government does not respond. On October 5th, hijackers target a passenger bus. Hindu passengers are singled out and executed. Mrs. Gandhi imposes president's rule in the Punjab. Police search and shoot with impunity. Sikhs and Hindus alike are falling victim to the gun. Bhindranwale denies responsibility for any of the terrorism. He blames the government for the violence, claiming it is part of a diabolical plan to discredit Sikhs, a position his supporters maintain to this day. There are rumors that Bhindranwale will be arrested. He takes sanctuary right inside the Golden Temple complex, in one of its most sacred buildings, the Akal Takht, or Eternal Throne. Over the next few months, there are signs that Sikhs are preparing for battle. By late May 1984, Mrs. Gandhi decides that the only way to stop the escalating crisis in the Punjab is to tackle Bhindranwale head-on. June 1st, 1984. The Indian Army is preparing for a showdown at the Golden Temple. Lieutenant General Kuldeep Singh Brar has arrived in Amritsar and is gathering intelligence.
All I could see were heavy fortifications. I could see Sikh militants walking on the roof with their weapons. I could see sentries all over the place. I could see people looking in all directions through binoculars. So I realized that we have a very, very difficult job on hand.
Meanwhile, pilgrims are flocking to Amritsar for an important Sikh religious holiday, unaware that their most sacred shrine is about to become a battleground. Troops are arriving from all over India, and on June 2nd, an infantry battalion forms a cordon around the Golden Temple complex. Because of the religious holiday on June 3rd, the crowds are larger than usual. Devotees have come from far and wide to pay tribute to a Sikh martyr, their fifth guru who built the Golden Temple and was executed by the rulers of the day. The symbolism of the guru's supreme sacrifice is not lost on Bhindranwale and his men as they prepare for battle with Indira Gandhi and her army.
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਕੂਮਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਗੁਜ਼ਰੀਆਂ ਇਹਨੇ ਵੀ ਉਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਚਲੀ ਜਾਣਾ.
On the night of June 3rd, Mrs. Gandhi's government cuts the Punjab off from the rest of India. All transportation and communication is halted. A curfew prevents anyone still inside the Golden Temple complex from leaving. Many pilgrims remain. The situation is growing more ominous by the hour. Early on the morning of June 5th, journalists are ordered onto a police bus and driven out of the Punjab. The government-imposed information blackout will ensure that one of the most controversial events in modern history will also be one of its most undocumented. The army is making final preparations to enter the Golden Temple that evening. The mission is codenamed Operation Blue Star. The Indian Army's main objective is to neutralize Bhindranwale and those Sikhs who are based in the Akal Takht at one end of the complex. Brar orders his men not to fire directly at this sacred building or at the other holy shrine, the Golden Temple itself. At 10:30 p.m. on June 5th, half an hour behind schedule, the assault begins. In all, 1,000 soldiers are pitted against a few hundred Sikhs. But the militants fight with a ferocity that far exceeds their numbers.
They can not only fire from the ground floor, but from the first floor. Grenades were being lobbed at them. At the same time, they were being fired upon from the Akal Takht. And now it became difficult for them to move.
Brar's troops are fighting for their lives. Under the command of Shahbeg Singh, the army general turned militant, Bhindranwale's men have transformed the walkway into a death trap for the soldiers.
10 would die, 10 would go forward. 10 more would die, then 10 more would get forward. And it's only somewhere in the early hours of the morning that we were somewhere close to the Akal Takht. But then the amount of firing was intensified because Akal Takht was very, very heavily fortified.
I think the army misled Mrs. Gandhi in assuring her that the operation would be over in a couple of hours, or perhaps never take place if there was show of arms. Bhindranwale would surrender. Well, he didn't. He fought back like a tiger.
Time is running out for General Brar. If the militants are not subdued by dawn, his troops will be in plain view and become easy targets for the militants. Despite the orders not to fire directly on the Akal Takht, Brar decides to take drastic action.
And at that stage, I had no other alternative but to bring a tank at one of the entrances and use a gun of that tank to hit at Akal Takht, because there's nothing that we could do with rifles or machine guns.
Tank fire ravages the sacred Akal Takht. At first, the militants show no sign of relenting. Then at 11 a.m., 12.5 hours after the army entered the Golden Temple, the firing stops. It will be many hours before Bhindranwale's fate is known. First, the army has to deal with hundreds of people who are coming out of hiding to surrender. Satwant Kaur's family is among them.
वो बोलने लगे हमें ये हुक्म हुआ है, ऑर्डर हुआ है कि जो जेंट्स हैं उनको गोली मार देनी और जो लेडीज हैं उनको पकड़ लेना। ते बड़े से छोटा जो लड़का था रमिंदरपाल सिंह, ये कद में कुछ लंबाई में था, तो उनको ये मालूम हुआ कि ये बड़ा है। वो इसको निकाल कर ते हमारे सामने ही बंदूक के बट जो है ना पिछले, वो मारते मारते हुए इसको हाथ ऐसे करके परिक्रमा में ले गए। वहां जब ये 1 घंटा हम रोते रहे वहां खड़े कि हमारे बेटे को वापस कर दो, हमारा कोई कसूर नहीं।
There's just no question, let me assure you, from the bottom of my heart, there's no question of a soldier or a man in uniform ill-treating a civilian or shooting a civilian.
Many civilians tell a different story. Satwant Kaur's son Raminder is one of hundreds of Sikhs taken away to military camp.
जब हमको लेकर हमारे बीच में जो कुछ आदमी जख्मी भी थे, वैसे ही बड़े लोग पानी मांगता तो पानी नहीं दे रहे थे। बाहर से उन्होंने लगा दिया कुंडा। जब आदमी मरने लगे तो उन्होंने तोड़ा दरवाजा, तोड़कर वो सामने की टूटी लगी हुई थी पानी। वहां अगर भागकर पानी पीने के लिए गए तो फौज ने समझा कि दोबारा हमारे ऊपर आए, तो उन्होंने फायरिंग की और वहां पे 15-20 आदमी मारे उन्होंने।
The terrible toll of Operation Blue Star is becoming clear. The government claims that 83 soldiers and 493 civilians are dead, but journalists and human rights groups who later will interview survivors believe more than 1,500 civilians are unaccounted for. While the Battle of the Golden Temple is finished, the war against the Indian government is far from over. Indira Gandhi's enemies are plotting revenge. The aftershock of Operation Blue Star resonates around the world. The Prime Minister knows she has alienated Sikhs, and after a lifetime in Indian politics, she knows the possible consequences. October 31st, 1984, 5 months after Operation Blue Star. The Prime Minister walks across the lush compound toward her office, where she is scheduled to do a television interview. It is the moment her enemies have been waiting for. As she approaches the guardhouse at the end of the path, one of her Sikh guards raises his revolver and fires. A second Sikh opens fire with his machine gun.
We regret to announce the death of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. She was critically injured this morning at her residence when she was
shot down by 2 of her own bodyguards. They were Sikhs taking revenge for the invasion of their temple in June.
In the hours after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, the cycle of revenge spirals into madness. Murderous Hindu mobs swarm into the streets and attack every Sikh in their path.
I went out because there's so much noise outside. They were burning all the taxis which belonged to the Sikhs. They were looting all the Sikh shops in Khan Market and setting them on fire. They burnt a Sikh temple just behind my flat, and the police were there. They were told not to interfere.
Sikh women watch in horror as gangs of thugs surround their homes and drag their men into the street.
वो तो सारे हजारों की तादाद में थे। एक एक के घर के आगे 10-10, 15-15 जने थे, तो बंदा जिसमें एक घर में एक बंदा होगा तो 10-15 के सामने क्या वो एक मुकाबला कर सकता है। आया, लाठी सरियाओं से मारा, तेल डाला, गले में टेर डाला, पेट्रोल डाल के आग लगा दी।
मेरा लड़का का छुरा मारा, ऐसे आके गिर गई सामने ही, मेरे सामने देख था मेरा लड़का को, माँ 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 पानी दे, पानी देगा से पानी दो।
In a few brutal hours, virtually all the men in these women's lives, husbands, sons, fathers, nephews, are massacred. 20,000 are killed across northern India. For the survivors, it is horror without end.
लोग बेहोश होने लगे कि ये हमारे आदमियों के हालात हैं।
There was just a carnage that I don't know that the rest of the world has ever properly understood. Sikhs were butchered on trains coming down from the Punjab, and their scalped heads were left hanging out of the doors of cars, coaches on the trains. And there were literally sandals floating in blood in the gutters, and there were terrified people hunched into corners, women and children.
While the Delhi riots are the most visible proof of persecution against Sikhs after Operation Blue Star, abuses are also happening in the Punjab. A massive government security force is sent to the region to stamp out militants. Thousands of Sikhs, many of them innocent, are beaten, tortured, even murdered in the name of national security. Many of those arrested during Operation Blue Star suffer the same fate.
टार्चर में ये था भी टांगन दोनों को खींच देते थे, ये ऐसे जो टांगे ऐसे कर देनी, तो उसके बाद जो मेरे बाजू वैसे पीछे बांधकर, तो जो ये टांगे सीधी करके जहाँ पे घोटना लगाते थे उसको घोटना कहते हैं। एक बड़ा सा डंडा होता है, उसको यहाँ पे रख देते हैं और दो आदमी इधर खलो जाते हैं, उसके दो इधर, उसको ऐसे फेरते हैं यहाँ पे गोडे की तरफ, फिर गोडे से ऊपर की तरफ। हर वक्त दहशत का माहौल हमारे ऊपर करना भी है।
The situation in the Punjab bolsters the cause of Sikh separatists around the world. Demands for an independent state called Khalistan. After Operation Blue Star, the movement gains momentum, galvanized by a prophecy made by Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale before his death.
संत जरनैल सिंह बोलते थे कि ये दरबार साहब में हमला हुआ ना, तो तब खालिस्तान की नींव रखी है। ओपनली बोलते थे, अखबारों में आता था।
The young men and their teachers of the religious school where Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale was a leader, he will go down in history as the man who challenged the Indian government and won.
संत ज्ञानी जरनैल सिंह ने भिंडरांवाले सुत्ती कौम जगाई।
Many believe the government has not given Sikhs what they've been owed since Operation Blue Star.
The Indian government has not been gracious enough to apologize and say, this was an error we should never have made. It would have made a lot of difference. And the same with the killing of Sikhs that followed Mrs. Gandhi's assassination. Here are 20,000 people, innocent people who lost their lives, and not one man has been imprisoned so far. So how can they forget? It rankles in the minds of the Sikh.
There is bitterness here that will linger long after the witnesses are gone.
सिख जो है वो अपना घर तो जलता देख सकता है, बाकी गुरुद्वारों को जलता नहीं देख सकता। वो भी दरबार साहब जैसा जो भक्ति और शक्ति का सुमेल, ये जो है ये इतिहास में लिखा गया, ये तो कभी भूलेंगे नहीं।
ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਨਿਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਕਿਉਂ ਆ ਗਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ? ਜਿਹਦੀ ਧੀ ਭੈਣ ਨੰਗੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੁੱਟੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਇਸ਼ਟ ਦੀ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਉਹਦਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਕੇਵਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਪੁੱਛੀ ਜਾਵੇ, ਹੱਥੀਂ ਕੜੇ ਕੁੱਝ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਹੱਕਦਾਰ ਹੈ? ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚੋ ਤਾਂ ਘਰ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਨੂੰ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਤਾ ਨੂੰ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਬੀਬੀ ਨੂੰ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਘਰ ਘਰ ਜਾਵੇ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਹਾਂ, ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋਣਾ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰਧਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਤਿਆਰ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਹੋਵੋ।
Do you now fear for your own personal safety?
Well, I've lived with danger all my life, and I think I've had a pretty full life, and it makes no difference whether you die in bed or you die standing up.